Hello, this is Linda Como, and I'm recording this talk with Jonathan Hooton for the 2015 North American Systemic Constellations coming up this November at the Bahia Resort in San Diego. And so I'd like to introduce Jonathan Hooton, who is giving us a talk on Sunday, the afternoon, November 15th. And the title is Trauma in the Family and Individual Fields. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm pleased to meet you. I'm very excited about the conference. I'm sure you are too. But before we talk about your talk at the conference, would you give us a little background and history about yourself and how you got into the constellations world and maybe about your practice?
Okay, that's quite a long answer, I think, Linda.
Time.
I was taking a training in what's called integrated body psychotherapy. I'm very interested in the body and really I would say the bottom-up processing from the really the implicit memory, what's happening in the body rather than our thinking. And one of the teachers was taking a training in constellations at the time, and she did a demonstration with us, and I got to represent. And I got to represent as grandfather, I think. And I was asked to stand behind father, my son, and to put my hand on my son to support him. And I couldn't. I literally couldn't move my arms. My shoulders pulled in, and I thought, this is fascinating because that's not one of my defenses. That's not how I would normally react if I was asked to do something. I wouldn't tighten inwards like that. So I got fascinated and wanted to learn more about it, and went down to see Jane Peterson in Portland. This is back in 2005, I think. And had a constellation done for me, which was very challenging indeed, in that it showed many of the dynamics in my family that I had been totally unaware of, and explained some of the difficulties I was facing in my life. And I signed on for her training immediately, which was the following year, 2006. And at the same time, Fran Boring was here in Edmonton in Alberta, Canada, and she was doing training, and I was able to get into that as well. So I got two trainings. One, Jane is very explicit and very organized with all the principles and all the principles of constellations. And Fran is more from an Aboriginal perspective and what emerges in every single training. We'd never really know what we were going to be doing the next time. And that was a lovely blend for me, really lovely blend, because I've also had a lot of contact with the Aboriginal community here and healing here. So to me, that was beautiful. And to see the similarities between Aboriginal healing and the constellation work. And then to really learn how to facilitate from working with an individual, in the body and seeing what's happening in the body, to seeing what's happening with multiple bodies all at the same time. And then I took trainings with various people. I went to Germany a couple of times to the Ben Reed with Hunter Beaumont at that time, and all the other facilitators, including Jane and Fran again. And we invited actually Mark Wallin here several times, and then he did his 2-year training with us as well. And that was phenomenal. I learned a lot about family dynamics with him. And that's very helpful for me working with individuals, and particularly couples. Really, really helpful for working with couples to see some of the dynamics. So, and I use constellations, either with footprints or with figurines with individuals and couples a lot when I'm working with in the office. And one of the things I noticed in doing the workshops, I've been doing them now roughly once a month for, I guess, 9 years now, is the effect of trauma, unresolved trauma in the family system, in the ancestors, and which is carried by the descendants, and trauma in individuals. And I realized that I wasn't very knowledgeable about trauma. And so I took a training in somatic experiencing. I think it's a 3-year training, which really helped to integrate my own body training, working with the body, with the nervous system. It was quite a revelation to me to see how the nervous system really unconsciously is stuck when we're in trauma. That we're either stuck in a state of hopelessness, dread, depression, or we can be stuck in an activated state of panic, anxiety, rage, in what can be called redundant loops. We keep repeating the same loop in trauma. And to see that and as a facilitator, it's really quite easy to re-traumatize people without realizing it. I hadn't realized, I've been doing it too, sort of pushing people past their own limits, their own tolerance, and their own system will then shut down or go into high activity or go into a shutdown. So that's how I sort of started blending the two together. And I'm really excited at the moment because there is so much going on about trauma. There's, the PTSD is well known. It's Ed Tick, isn't it, who's giving a talk on PTSD and sort of the soul aspects of it for vets coming back from Vietnam. There's a whole lot here come out about the residential schools and the children, and now the adults, and they're very well aware of intergenerational trauma, that it's come down. Even if they were the grandchild of a resident, they're also suffering the trauma that's been passed down to them through parenting practices as well. So there's a lot of awareness now of trauma. And I think the somatic experiencing way of healing is very, very effective. And it's really to allow the system, the individual system, to complete survival responses, which are fight and flight, or shutdown, which is a survival response, to complete. And I see in the constellations many parallels between working in an individual to allow completion and in a family system to allow completion. And in the individual, the symptom might be shut down, it might be unresolved grief, it might be unresolved shame, so toxic shame. Carried in a person, and in a family system, the symptom is carried by a person rather than a symptom in one person. And that, a constant an individual, in that it's allowing a process to complete, and often with movement. Staying with the body with an individual allows it to complete the movement with a little bit of support. Staying with a constellation with a little bit of support, maybe a little intervention, allows a completion. And one of the, I see unresolved grief very much as a trauma. So trauma in this sense of what is not complete in the body, in the nervous system. And it's not the event. So for some people, a big event may not be very traumatizing. And for other people, a small event may be very traumatizing. It depends on the nervous system of each individual. So it's so the trauma is what is held in the body. And so what is held in the family system as well. So many similarities I'm seeing between the two processes and in facilitating the two processes. You know, there's presence, there's so the facilitator needs to be present, and a therapist needs to be present with the client and the system. Safety. So for working with traumatized people, safety is an enormous consideration. And I see that as very important with clients in workshops too. I mean, most people who come to workshops are not very traumatized, because very traumatized people won't come. I mean, they just won't come to a workshop. But it still shows up every now and then. And it's very helpful to know how to deal with that sort of trauma, or even not to work with someone who is very traumatized. I've actually stopped Constellations, or even not started one, if I cannot find a place of support them finding safety, or they're so either shut down or fragmented, very fragmented, dissociated, that they're not really available to be in the constellation. Another piece that's very similar is sort of the amount of stimulus that's added to either an individual, how much they're willing to go into the pain or into actually often very painful, scary, very scary feelings in the body. And in a constellation, how much we can help people do that. And one of the big things I see is representing. So representing takes a lot of the pressure off the client or the seeker. And there are different words, I think, now for who comes with the issue.
Jonathan, can I ask a question?
Absolutely, Linda.
So in this last piece, you mentioned that representing is good for the traumatized person. So so if someone was coming to a group and they are traumatized, and you can, for some reason they had a moment of clarity and showed up, it might be good for them to represent in another person's constellation. Is that correct?
No, I was thinking more that if someone's traumatized, to have someone else represent them. So I mean, we have various choices. Some people who are really clearly okay with themselves, well contained, can represent themselves, can be their own self throughout the constellation. Okay. Others have a representative for them. Yes. And often I will invite someone at the end of the constellation to come in and take their place to feel the resolution. But it really depends on where their nervous system is, and their choice. So, I mean, another part of this safety is a choice. That always the client has the choice of taking part or not. Yeah. And also they have whether they want to choose a representative or not. Some people don't actually want to choose a representative.
Yes.
That can be.
Yes. Very good. Yes, I'm thinking of one of my clients actually at the moment who's struggling to come. But thank you. That was really good. What I've basically done is invite them to just come and observe other people.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a great idea. I mean, that's a wonderful advantage of constellations is you don't actually have to do a constellation or even have your own one seen to get some healing, because many of the issues for us are very similar. A constellation, somebody else's constellation, maybe resonate very strongly with our own issue. And just to be present to a constellation is, I mean, present in the room is a great, great healing. And their can't speak, their participation as in the group, without doing anything, just being present, is a wonderful healing as well for the whole group.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that goes again back to trauma work of co-regulation of nervous systems coming together to support each other. As facilitators, we need to be able to do that. But it really helps to have the whole group there present. That really helps to regulate the whole group nervous system and the client in particular. And I'm thinking of other resources that really work both with the individual and with the constellations. It's very common to put a parent behind someone to help support them.
Yes.
That's a resource. It can also be an ancestor.
Yes.
But it could also be a friend.
Yes.
And also to have that for the client who's in the seat and sitting and watching, maybe have them bring a friend or somebody to be with them to help their nervous system as well. I mean, sometimes it can be the facilitator, but somebody they're well attached to really helps their nervous system too. And, I mean, working with clients in the office, that works as well, but another part is in the body, what actually feels good in the body, that is also a resource. Or what in the room, what image and what memory can be a resource. All these can be helpful to help calm the nervous system.
Oh, that's fascinating. I have another question.
Great, thank you, Linda. I appreciate that.
Well, it's just coming up to me. Are there some rituals at the beginning before you start your constellation to help secure the room and the space and the potential clients that you use that you might share with us?
Well,
or would that be your talk at the conference?
No. I like to do a body meditation at the beginning. I see, because, well, here's another thing about the constellations. It's very much about what's happening in the body. It's not a thinking process on the whole. I mean, sometimes thoughts come out. It's really what is happening in each representative's body. And the more we have access to that, I think the more accurate the work is. So I really encourage people to pay attention to what's happening in their body. So I do body meditation, very much without judgment. So whatever is happening in the body now, that is what is happening. And just to be with it, really without trying to change it, just to be with what is. I mean, this goes back to Hellinger and acknowledging what is. This is the very first stage of acknowledging what is what's happening in my body. Like today, we start talking at the beginning and I'm feeling nervous. So that's actually what is happening. There are certain sensations that come with being nervous. And so that helps to be present too. So it helps for representatives to be present, because everything that happens in our body is now, it's present. And I find that helpful for me anyway as a facilitator, and it helps to ground everyone as well.
Yes.
And it sets up, there's this feeling of the energy in the room settled really well with that.
Yes. Cool. Well, this has been fascinating.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you. Thank you for your presence.
I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Jonathan. Nice to know you're a fellow Canadian also.
That's wonderful. I agree. We're a little bit isolated up here.
That's right. Okay, so I just want to remind everybody, Jonathan Hooton's workshop is Sunday in the afternoon, November 15th, Trauma in the Family and the Individual Fields. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll be spreading this little video around to promote your workshop.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.